There are some guys. They got a wall of fame down there at Regal that showed all these guys that have over 1 million miles, 2 million miles, 3 million miles. I went in there and I said, well, I've had 4 million miles, but I got no way of documenting it. You know, it's just I had my own truck, so.
You don't have log books that show all that stuff?
Yeah, but they don't show, any accidents or anything like that.
Oh, I see what you're saying.
But they could, check
it would
back.
show the 4 million miles.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Well, that's just kind of a guesstimate. I think somewhere between 4 and 5. I've done it for over 50 years, so it's.
And we were reading in there that you were driving for mushroom trucking at one time.
Yeah. Danny Drake. He was a pretty good guy. He just passed away here, I think, last year. He lived in Florida. He moved down there to Florida too. See his. And there's something when you get older. First page you look at in the paper is the obituary to see. I think
guilty.
Yeah, I think most people that are a little older do that.
Kenny C., thank you so much. This is terrific. We've had fun, as we mentioned, talking to some of your colleagues with a goal that we're going to have a Chautauqua or at the Robert Jackson Center in September this year, a documentary on the history of State Line Speedway, the first 10 years. And Ken C., you're part of that. And we were reading a program here that you probably have seen copies of. And by the way, is that part of the just signaling a time, or is that a?
That's my clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, enter stop in a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. And it talks about this particular program. You're 30 years old and a veteran of a dozen years of racing. Kenny C. still recalls vividly his first night on the track. It was at the old Skyline Speedway on the hill above Sugar Grove. And Kenny C., Skip Vincent, and a couple of others had an old stock Chevrolet. Well, then you went on to talk about that very first race and how you were placed on the pole position and Kenny Johnson, all that stuff. Tell the story. I think it's a great story.
Well, needless to say, it was that car right there, and needless to say, I was a little bit nervous because I'd wanted to race a lot, and so we threw this whole car together, and it was a Chevy Coupe, and went up there, and I didn't do so good in the heat race, and I didn't do so good in the semi, and so they asked me if I wanted the pole or the back end in the feature. No, I wasn't taking no back end. I wanted to be up number one. Mistake number one. But when they went to start the race, they were playing the national anthem or whatever. My leg, I was trying to hold the clutch down. It was shaking so bad. I thought the car was going to fall apart. Probably my jaw and everything. But it was really exciting, and we got going there a little bit, and I messed up and caused a restart, and the next time we got going again, and I messed up again, and so it got shoved out of the way, so they didn't want to put up anymore with that stuff. So, but it was quite an experience anyways.
Well, it says here, maybe you can confirm it, he said, I'll tell you, my foot was shaking, etc. Kenny Johnson was about 3 cars behind me, and he moved right in to take the lead on the first lap. I cut him off something terrible. We all spun around, and about everybody piled in. Then they restarted and by the second lap, everybody just ran right over the top of me. Kenny, who was always a great guy and a good friend, caught me in the pits and said, well, you really got your baptism, didn't you?
Yeah. That was quite a deal.
What got you started? Was your dad into racing?
No, I just liked driving cars, and I couldn't wait to get out of school to get a car, and I liked fast cars, and I went to races a few times up to Skyline there, and it just got me enthused about it, and I wanted to try that. It looks so easy till you get out there, you find out something different. But it was something I really wanted to do, and so once you get into it, why, it's just like a disease, you know. You can't stop it. It's incurable. So we spent a lot of years working on cars and learning a lot of stuff, and never had much of a budget, so we never had anything really top shelf stuff, but it was fun.
I see you had a sponsor here, Davidson's. How did you convince them to do that?
Well, I knew Bob Davidson really, really well, you know, and he had that little milkshake stand down there to begin with, and I used to go in there all the time and talked him into, I don't know, I can't remember. Knowing Bob Davidson, it probably wasn't much of a sponsorship, but might have been 10, 20 bucks or something like that. But Bob Davidson was a great guy, his wife Margaret, and I knew him from the very beginning there. They were great people. But
So you had to be, 18 years old when you were starting into this.
yeah.
And from there's a story here which is about Jamestown Speedway. It said that Ken took the same car out to Jamestown Speedway a little bit later and was running through one of the turns at full tilt when the rear end dropped momentarily off the track. Over and over the car went. When it stopped rolling, it had lit right on top, on the top. You said, I was so weak that I had to come and get me out of the car. I couldn't figure out where I was for a couple hours. Tell me about that. Set that up.
Yeah, I'd borrowed a helmet from Bud Finelli, and it sat on my head like a turtle shell, right up on top. Well, I dropped that back end of the car over the edge, and they had no retaining wall or fence or anything there. And when the back wheels went down over, the frame caught in the berm, and boy, she just went like that. Well, I knocked my head against the roll bars about 4 times there, and I was laying down in the car ended up on the driver's side, and I was so weak from getting knocked around in there that I couldn't get out of the car, so they thought something was really tough. But just probably had a concussion or something. I never knew it, but just kind of knocked me cuckoo. I didn't know where I was. All of a sudden, I kind of realizing, I said, they're racing all over here, but they were all in it about an hour later. But yeah, it was quite a ride. That old Jamestown Speedway. I remember going out through the trees over there one time and knocking over them little poplar trees just like they were sticks out there, going off the 3rd turn up there. That was what a place to race.
Did you have an early hero or an idol or somebody that you were out there when you were here, your young 18, 19-year-old guy, and you said, boy, I wish I could be like him? Who might that be?
Well, I don't know about really hero status, but I always thought Dean Layfield was the ultimate. I mean, he was, he'd put a big old car through a half-inch hole, seemed like, on the track. If it wasn't there, he'd make it. Yeah. But he was just a hard charger, and I just kind of liked that. I liked Earnhardt, the way Earnhardt used to drive, the old Earnhardt there. Just kind of, look out, here I come, If you don't get out of the way, you're going to get out of the way. Yeah. But that was the way that we used to race back in them days, If the hole wasn't there, you made one.
Were there guys who, we asked the question, by the way, we asked the question of everybody, same way. If you were on your last lap and you just had one car to beat to get to that victory in the feature, who would be the guy you'd least likely to have there with you, car, for fear that he'd be just a little more aggressive or whatever? Was there one racer that you just didn't want to have at that last lap?
Well, I think one of my heroes is Tom Dill.
Sorry, please. You win! That's everybody says that.
Yeah, he's one guy that you wouldn't want to try to get by on the last lap, I'll tell you, because either you both wouldn't finish the race or you wouldn't anyways. But that was the way he was. But I'll tell you something about Tom Dill. I think he had more talent to drive a race car. All around talent. He didn't do a terrible amount of winning at State Line, but he could do things with a car that I'd never seen anybody else do, So I always thought if there was ever kind of a contest or anything about who's the greatest driver all around, I'd say Tom Dale. He could do anything. Didn't always have the best equipment, but he could drive anything.
Were you teammates together with Joe through the Joe Mobilia team?
Well, he was not with Dale.
Yeah.
No. Dale had went to drive for somebody else when I that Pontiac that's in there right there. That was the first late model I ever drove was that one right there. That was Bob Gauthier's car, and him and Mobilia were buddy. And Mike Karmazowski was driving that car. And Mike Karmazowski is one of my best friends. I got a picture of him here. And I didn't even know I had it. I'm going to have this blowed up right there. Little Mike.
Yeah, that is Mike right there.
They used to have 100-lap jalopy races up there. And I didn't consider my car a jalopy. But needless to say, we had that one race up there, there must have been 80 cars started that race. I mean, there was cars all the way around the track. Well, they had a lot of cautions and everything, to clean the junk up during the race, and ended up, Mike was in front of me at the very last 2 or 3 laps, and I thought Ponder was the starter. I thought he was telling me I was number 1, Well, when the race was over, and I could have passed him. I had a better car than Mike did. But he ended up winning the race, and here I had 3 laps. I could have got by him. That Oldsmobile I had to run really good. And so anyways, I always thought of anybody that I was glad to see win was him, because he passed away at an early age. He had heart problems, but whale of a nice guy.
There's a story in this thing which you must explain. It goes on like this. And this happened at Coon Road Speedway here in Westfield. It was then that Ken became a man of mystery, for his employer believed Ken was working on Sunday afternoon. Actually, Ken was doing the work later on, as he noted, as he took the checkered flag for his first feature victory. 3 pictures suddenly came to mind. One was a newspaper headline saying, "C wins auto race." The other was of his employer reading the paper and noting his Sunday whereabouts. The third was of Ken C. being told his services were no longer desired at the company. And you pleaded with the late Joel Swartout, track owner, "Don't put my name in the paper. Put anything in, but not my name." Tell the rest of the story.
Yeah, that was I was working at the time. It was the first truck driving job I had for Furniture Express. George Rindosh owned it.
Right.
And he was pretty hard-nosed about drivers and stuff like that. And so I wanted to go racing. He wanted everybody out of town by noon on Sunday, that had to go somewhere. Well, nobody raced Sunday morning. Everybody raced Sunday afternoon. So I take my truck home to Lakewood. I lived in Lakewood at the time, and hide it in the alley back there, and jump in the car and go up to Coon Road to the Speedway. And well, I knew I had a pretty good car, and it worked good at Coon Road. It was just about the right size track for it. And so I told him, I said, whatever you do, if I happen to win, I said, don't get my name in the paper. Say anything you want to say. It don't bother me a bit. But I said, don't put my name in the paper. And I told him the reason, I said, boss will read that and he'll wonder how I was at 2 places at the same time. And it would have probably cost me my job. But as it was, I did win the feature. And so the next Monday, I didn't know what they was going to do. And next Monday in the paper it says, "Mystery Man wins feature at Coon Road Speedway." I was known as Mr. X or Mystery Man or something, And so anyways, it was kind of a deal. I just run into a lady and her husband that just, they live up there on the old, where the Speedway was on Coon Road now. Miss Abby, I think her name is. And she's seriously ill with cancer. But I stopped by one day, I see the guy out there, and I stopped by. I said, where is the old Speedway down in there? Oh, he says, it's down back there. He says, you can still see where it is. He says, who are you? And I said, Ken C. Oh, the mystery man. I said, how'd you know that? And he says, well, my wife has collected a bunch of memorabilia from Coon Road Speedway.
I'll be done.
And he says, she's really ill in the house today, but he said, if you'd wait here, he said, I'll go in and see if she wants to come out and meet you. So he went in and seen her, and she come out, and it just in her bathrobe, and she's got some kind of cancer. It's real bad. And but he says, after she went back in, he says, you know, you made her day. He said that was really something. I said, well, praise the Lord. But you know, she's got all that stuff. She had a lot of that stuff in there about Coon Road. And I never kept any of that stuff. I just, once in a while, I'll run across something that I threw in paper clipping or something. But that was fun racing there.
Do you remember your first victory at State Line Speedway?
Yeah, right there. First time I drove a late model, I won the feature.
No kidding.
Yeah, it was Bob Gauthier's, that Pontiac right there. And Mike Karmazowski had been driving it. I figured he stole my 100-lap Jalopy championship. Why, I stole his ride in the race car. No, they asked me if I wanted to drive it, and I said sure. And they just worked out. The first night I won the feature at State Line, and next day we went over they were racing over at North Collins there on Sunday afternoon, and went over there, and I was running about third, I think, or something like that, and the first two, Finelli and somebody else got tangled up, and I went by them on the last lap or something like that, so I won first two late model features in a row, so I thought that was a pretty good deal. The bubble soon burst after that.
It was pretty interesting competition. If I threw out a bunch of names to you, I'm just curious whether you have a story or a vignette or something. So if I say Squirt Johns, what's that mean to Kenny C?
He was a hard driver. I think he was more of a technician, a good technician than what he was. I mean, he was a good driver. He had won all them features, but I think his forte was technology. He could keep that big old pumpkin down there on the inside where everybody else was running around the outside, you know, and it just torque off them turns like crazy. But he was a good driver, and I don't know how he ever sat on that seat he had in that car. It was like a little round bar stool or something. I don't know how he ever managed that, but I guess he did. But we had the guy that owned this car, Harry, Squirt spun me out one time and on the main straightaway, and the car rolled up on the side right on the main straightaway. And the guy that owned this car here, he went over, and after the races were over there, he went over and laid a sledgehammer on top of Squirt's roof while he was still in the car, and he says, "You touch our car again," he said, "I'll beat this thing down to the ground," you know. But just kind of a little deal there, but I had nothing to do with it. But he was a hard driver. Yeah, he's a good driver.
Bobby Schnars.
Almost unbeatable. He owned State Line Speedway, and I can remember when Bobby started up there. I had that Oldsmobile there, and I used to go up there and fool around, and he had a big old, I can't remember what year it was, Oldsmobile. It was a full-size Oldsmobile. And he'd get up there and try to get that thing around them corners, and he'd come down this straightaway, about halfway down the straightaway, he'd throw that thing into a slide just to to keep it inside the track, you know. But Bobby Snars was very good on there, a lot better at State Line actually than what he was at Erie. But he was a good driver, great driver.
Emery Mann.
I remember the night I hit Emery Mann in the hind end. It was so embarrassing that I couldn't hardly. We had a team race. Now, Emery Mann was a good driver too. I can remember that old 8-ball Chevy just screaming. The only guy I ever knew that shifted cars on the straightaway at State Line, because he whined that thing out, man. But anyways, we had a team race up there, and I had an old 49 Ford, and I was racing with Eb Young out of somewhere down there in Pennsylvania. We were a team, so each part of the team had a race for a little while, so many laps, you know. But anyways, I was out there, and we was motoring around there on a caution flag because they had a big wreck or something there, you know. I'm looking up the stand, look to see where my family is up there, and I turned around, and everybody had stopped, and I hit him right square in the back end. Motor mounts broke on that Ford, and the motor went forward, and it stretched the throttle out, and it was screaming, and I looked at, of course, Emery, he turned around and looked, and I went, brakes failed. I never even got to the brake pedal. I hit him, but I hit him pretty hard right there. Good thing it wasn't more than 10 miles an hour.
Oh, okay.
But
This would have been 1956, and so that's the first year of State Line when they had that team race.
yeah.
So you were there literally at the beginning.
Yeah. I'll tell you, when they was building that track, I was sitting over there on some stumps they'd sawed off, trees they'd sawed down, and like a kid waiting for Christmas, you know. I couldn't wait for him to get that thing done, to get up there. And that first night was that was really something. I didn't race the first night, but I was there till about 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning pushing cars out of the mud. It was terrible, but it developed into quite a traction there.
Well, while we're on the subject, talk to me about Leonard Briggs.
Lenny Briggs, really pretty easygoing guy, I thought. Somewhat different than Mr. Frank was. Mr. Frank was kind of overbearing at times. And,
Don?
yeah, not Don. Jerry. Yeah.
Jerry, okay.
Yeah, he was. Him and the guy that at Mobilia there that I drove for later on. Why? They just couldn't get near each other without getting into a verbal scrap anyways, you know. Of course, it kind of reflected back on me and things like that. So, but Leonard Briggs, I thought he was a gentleman. I always liked Len Briggs. Like Donnie Frank, too. He was very soft, easygoing. Them guys are hard workers, boy. They worked hard at putting that thing together.
The other guy in that group was Lloyd Williams.
Lloyd Williams, yeah. Nice gentleman.
Was he pretty much the PR guy of all of this?
Yeah, really was, yeah. Actually, I think, if I remember right, I think he started out starting the races too, if I remember right. I may be wrong on that, but.
Well, yeah. I should say, point out the fifth guy who was in the early part of that was Marv Thorpe.
Right, yeah.
Do you know why Marv ultimately kind of peeled off of the ownership group?
I'm not really sure. I don't know whether it was a disagreement or whatever. You know, sometimes groups don't work out and somebody feels they got different ideas or something. I'm not really sure about that. But I know he made a big mistake. He went to racing after that. So. I'm sure that cost him a lot more money.
Exactly. Go back to some of the names that were early year. Hyle Russell.
Yeah. He was a good driver. He drove for what's his name down there? Ronnie Blackmer's father-in-law there.
Ruhlman.
Yeah, Ruhlman. He drove for him, and he drove for several people. He was one of the early favorites around. Him, Eddie Kisco. We used to go to Bradford, went to Rowlett. In fact, one time we were racing about 4 nights a week there, dragging an old piece of junk around. These guys had good race cars. We were dragging an old 49 Ford around, and but it was fun anyway. We went to Highland Corners and Roulette, Cuba, Bradford, Side Hill there. So it was a lot of time spent racing, eating dust and spending money.
What were the economics of it, Ken?
Well, you had to want to do it. I mean, there was no money in it at all. Even the guys that were winning a lot really wouldn't make that much.
Right.
But you know, you had to want to do it. That's the whole thing. So.
A name that comes up with a lot of our conversation, somewhat of a character, is Jug Pierce.
Jughead Pierce, yeah. He was a character too, yeah. He, you know, actually he could really drive a race car. The only trouble is he had a little problem with the bottle, and he'd come up there and try to do both at the same time. And I don't care, you know, driving a race car, you got to use your cool a little bit, and he would just get to where he'd just wreck all the time. That's all.
Right.
But yeah, he was quite a character. I think my dad knew his family personally, and they used to get on there.
There's some other names which just jump off the page here as guys who might be of interest, like Floyd Finale.
Oh yeah.
And Bud Finale.
Yeah. But
I was just wondering, one of the things that, just when we talk about Floyd, I maybe preempt the thought process, but you seem to have a quick trigger as far as temper is concerned. You've heard that a lot.
They all did.
They all did? Finales?
Yeah.
Was that their reputation?
Yeah. Now Bud, I liked them all as far as that goes. I mean, I had no problem with them. But Bud Finale was the one that had the quick trigger. I mean, the guy that owned this car here went over to say something to him one time about a wreck he had involved. Man, he turned around, he busted out about 3 teeth there, just turned around and plowed him up the ear, you know. I mean, he didn't know the thing was that serious or anything. He just said something to him. Boy, it just lit his fuse, I guess, and he let him have it. But he was very, yeah, you had to kind of walk with gentleness around, otherwise you'd be in quite a confrontation of some sort.
Was there a lot of that going on in the pits? I mean, when a race would be
Quite
going?
a lot.
Yeah.
Quite a lot. Yeah, it's like, you know, the old days. Nobody had much money, and if somebody was doing pretty good in a race or something, somebody took them out. You know, there went $10, $20, $30. You know, even that much it caused you to. But you want to win.
Yeah.
You know, you want to do good, and if somebody takes you out, well, we had a little problem that way and settled it one night up at Erie, but changed their attitude about our car. It seemed like if you try to be a gentleman, somebody's always trying to take you out of the race or something, you know. Well, you can knock him out of there. Yeah, and there was a lot of that, you know. So I just Ronnie Blackmer was running really pretty good in the 50 lapper at Erie one night, and Ronnie Blackmer kind of took me out in a turn, no reason at all, and so by the time I ruined a brake, I busted a brake line when we went in the infield and fixed it and went back out there. And I shouldn't tell this story because it's not very nice, but he come by and I thought, that looks like a target on his back end there. So I kind of took him out. And then Charlie Piazza, who had been really riding roughshod on our car in the past, he bumped me and, well, you son of a gun. Well, he went by and he didn't get all the way by. But, so I settled a couple old scores right there that night, but it worked out because they kind of laid off us after that, you know.
Yeah.
But that was the way we did things in them days, you know. If you done something to somebody else, you know, they're going to take care of you. Yours wrong comes around, I guess.
When the race was over time, it was sort of forgotten. I mean, it was just one of those. That was just the nature of the beast on the track, or did
More or less, yeah. I never really held a grudge against anybody at all. Some guys I'd rather race with than others, but Schnars, he was as good as he was. He could have been rough, but he wasn't rough. He's just a good driver. He took advantage of the openings and really moved on. Otherwise, other guys, they have to give you a little nudge here and there.
Yeah.
But,
We just had the 80th birthday of Sam Lamancuso in Jamestown, and there were some of the drivers came back. Jim Scott.
yeah.
Do you have any stories on Sammy?
Sammy was one of those real nice guys too. Him and Kenny Johnson raced together there, and I could always go down and, you know, get some feedback for what we were trying to do to our car there and ask questions. They were always really helpful. They'd even, you know, give you some parts or something if you need it, you know. But Sammy was always a real. I never seen Sammy mad, and that's kind of difficult to say at a racetrack, but I never did see him mad. But he was a really nice guy. I liked Sammy very much.
Everybody said that, the same thing. They're having fun with each other because Tom Dill was there, and of course they had fun with Tom and Finale and Kenny Shearer, Bronnie Blackmer, of course Jim Scott, and Jim Scott had success during your time period as well. What was Jim like?
Well, I don't know how he could see the racetrack. Them glasses he had were about 2 inches thick, and I don't know how he could see the racetrack, but he was a good driver.
Yeah.
And he drove Busink's car there for a while at the end, and he done pretty well with that. I think he went to Daytona, the ARCA race, and drove down there. Something I always wanted to do, but.
Well, you did an ARCA race, didn't you?
Yes, I did.
In fact,
See, you never ask the Lord to give you something with a limit. I asked him if I could just one time race on a super speedway. That's what it was, one time.
Well, talk about it. It's an interesting. You had success.
It was fun. It was a deal where.
It was at Charlotte, right?
Right, and they had an ARCA race on a. I don't know if it was ARCA or Mark then, but anyway, same outfit. They had a race on Saturday. NASCAR race was Sunday. Well, the Saturday race got rained out, so a lot of the cars wouldn't show up the following week. They knew that. They postponed the ARCA race till Saturday the following week, and so anyways, he called up Mobilia there and asked him if they had a car they could bring down there to kind of fill up the field, you know. Well, that's the car we had, that 35 there. And it was a pretty decent looking car, and but it was a dirt car, you know. So we went down there, and they kind of fixed us up as far as setting up the front end and tires and stuff like that, you know. But what a different, you know. I was so excited about going there. It was great. Get out there, you run on third-mile dirt tracks all your life, you know, and then all of a sudden you're at a 1.5 mile banked asphalt speedway, and you really don't know what to do with it. And so I was kind of leery. We didn't qualify very good. We started, and the further I go, the faster I got. I got used to it. I kind of liked it, you know, and then you don't realize how fast you are going. So we were doing real good, almost up to the end, and some guy passed me on the outside, and I started back by him on the inside in the turn, and he just kind of dropped down on me, and away we went for a wild ride there. But that ended our car. But listen to Joe Mobilia say to this day, oh, we could have won that race. Nah, we couldn't have won that race. We were racing against Jack Bowser, who was kingpin in ARCA at that time. Curtis Turner was driving one of the Ford cars there, you know. So Iggy Katona, they had some really good drivers there, you know. And I thought, man, this is great just to be out there with those guys, you know. Even though I almost wiped them out one time. But it was quite an experience.
What's your highlight, Ken, as you reflect back on your lengthy career of driving? Were there one or two events that sort of stand out?
Well, I think that was probably the greatest thing that I done. The night I finished second at that Jalopy 100 lap, I never won a trophy. Never won a trophy. If they had a trophy, I might as well stay home. But I always wanted a trophy. But Mike Karmazowski won that 100 lap race, you know, and I kind of irked me to begin with because I thought they were telling me I was number one. But after the race, and he was really a good friend of mine, I got to thinking, you know, I would have, nobody else would I have felt that way about. I'm almost glad he won because it wasn't very many years after that. He went on to do some pretty good racing up at Conneaut. And I think he was going, I don't know if he won the track championship up there or not, but I never raced up there. But he done really good. But it was just shortly after that he died. I think he was about 50 years old or something like that, if he was that old. But, and then I thought afterwards, I'm glad he won, you know. But, yeah, no trophies for this guy.
Talk about death. During his prime and during your prime, Dean Layfield dies.
Yeah.
1961, I guess. And how did that impact the racing community?
Well, it was one of those things that I don't know, you just can't hardly believe it happened, but you got to understand the type of equipment that we had in those days as far as helmets go. He had one of them leather bottom beanie type like I had to begin with, you know, and that's actually what I understand was his demise. He got hit in the head with a rock off the track and it was right in there, but it did, it really, because he was really popular. I mean, if you could beat Dean Layfield, you figured you really accomplished something, you know. He was the number one. Remember that old Mercury with the pipes coming up through the roof there and just hollering so loud you couldn't hardly stand it, you know. But yeah, he was but he had a lot to do with a lot of people getting energized about racing, I'll tell you, because, you know, it looked like he was really having a lot of fun out there.
Was he helpful to you younger guys? Did you get a sense of that, or was he?
I never really had that much to do with him. Like I say, the guys locally that were really helpful to most anybody were like Sammy or Kenny or somebody like that they'd be willing to give you some good information and all that.
What about John Seeley? Was he part of your world?
Yeah, he was a good friend of mine, yeah. Good truck driver.
Yeah. John's still alive, I guess.
I think he passed away.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
Okay. You might be right. We've sort of lost track of...
He moved down to Charlotte. Didn't John Seeley pass away, hon?
Yes.
Yeah, I thought he did.
Okay. You go back to State Line. Was there an incident or two and you look back and you'd say, Greg, I forgot to tell you, but I can't believe this particular event occurred. It may have been with you, it may have been with some other car, but something that's sort of out of the ordinary, funny vignette, something that would be just a little bit crazy. Does anything come to mind, Ken?
I don't know of anything. I remember the night that Jim Scott took a flying leap over, I can't remember whose car that was, Eddie Kiska or somebody, and he hurt his back really pretty bad there for a while. I couldn't believe that happened the way it did, but I didn't think a car could fly that well. But
What happened there? I guess.
I can't really remember, but I know that they had a wreck there, and I think Scott never got to the brake pedal, and he just kind of launched straight off the. I just really can't remember how it was, but I know it was an awful wreck there. Anyways, I seen some guys get hurt. I remember the night Emery got hurt his back there. He thumped somebody or something. I can't remember. But I'll tell you one thing I thought was really odd. Ronnie Blackmere, good driver. I shouldn't even say anything about him, but he always drove those light cars that Ruhlman had. You know, I mean, there's a lot of difference in a light car and a heavy car. So Busing put him in his car up there, and he goes around there with that big old ton. Now Busing's cars weighed, you know, what the NASCAR cars ought to weigh, and but a lot different car. He parked that thing between the guardrail and the wheel fence one night right off the second turn there, and I thought, see, there's a lot of difference, boy, but you get all that weight going sideways, it just don't stop. It's a whole different ball game. But I thought that was a pretty nice parking job he did there. They had a heck of a job getting that thing out of there. I mean, yeah, got right there over the rail and sat right in there, man. It was quite a thing.
Yeah.
But I knocked the light out up there between the third and fourth turn one night with that Oldsmobile we was racing, and busted a wheel. And that wheel went right straight up in the air, up and hit the light up there and knocked the light out between the third and fourth turn. I thought, boy, if that had hit anybody, why, it'd have been a bad deal. But this is.
Was there a time that finally came, Ken, where you said, I've had it, enough's enough?
Yeah, I got. You know, it's hard on a family when all you're doing is racing, and all your time you're either working on the car or something. I did drive the last number of years. I drove somebody else's car, which was a lot easier. But still, you spend all your time at the racetrack and all that, and it's not good for families. And I decided, well, they had a 67 Mercury, I think it was, that Mobilia had there. It was a pretty fast car, and I wanted to buy it. Well, because he was going to get rid of it, and he didn't sell it to me. He sold it to somebody else, and that kind of turned me off on the whole deal, you know. So I just stayed right away. I knew I had to. I didn't even hardly go to the races at all. I knew if I went up there and watched them for a while, I'd probably want to try to get a ride out there. Yeah. But yeah, it got to a point where I had to, and I was interested in going to Bible school too at the time, and that kind of gained momentum in my life, and so I just kind of had to weigh out the two. What did I want to do? So. Bible school won. Racing lost not a good driver, but they lost a very willing driver.
Do you keep in touch with any of the drivers?
No, once in a while around here, you know, a lot of guys around here used to race. The Gilbert boys and Jim Eimer's up top of the hill here. He just passed away here last year or so. There's quite a few old guys around here. Everyone you talk to, oh yeah, I used to race up there, you know, and between Coon Road and Sulphur Springs and over there, Rolla Bowl. It seemed like anybody around here you run into had an affiliation there somewhere. A lot of the guys that raced at State Line started at Rolla Bowl. I wouldn't race over there. I didn't think I was a racetrack. I thought it was an obstacle course.
Here's something that what got us going here, Ken, is we did a documentary on Rollerball, a 40-minute documentary, and so we interviewed Ronnie Blackmer, Jim Scott, Skip Furlow. They all started there in some form or fashion. And we actually had movies of the track and the racing, and we actually went back into the track and found it, and it took a tour of the old track. It was kind of fun. We put together this documentary, and we showed it in Jamestown a couple of years ago. Huge success. Everybody came to watch this crazy documentary, which triggered, frankly, what we're doing now. There was interest saying, well, why don't you do State Line? Well, State Line is 50-some years. So he said, no. Maybe the first 10 years. So here we are. The offshoot of Rollerball is this thing. 10 years, and you're it. You're part of that first 10 years of State Line Speedway. And we're gathering pictures, and we're gathering in stories like you've just told us, funny stuff. Everybody's got funny stories. Because that's part of your racing is things that have occurred. So we hope to replicate that in September. You'll be invited to come down. It'll be September 26th. We'll have a movie. We'll have all these guys will come back. Squirt, Bobby. They all want to get together one more time. They haven't been together in ages. So I suspect it'll be a one-time only deal.
I'd like to see some of them guys there. They're dwindling away, A few of them. But you see these old names here, you can think back, and brings back a lot of good memories. A lot of fun. Herb Layfield. He had the name, but he didn't have the ability that his brother had. Oh, Herbie.
He's a storyteller, by the way. Bud Fiersdorf is the guy we just interviewed.
Bud Fiersdorf,
We found him in Allegheny, New York.
Oh, yeah. There was a guy down there. Who was that? Had them big old... Was that the one that had the big old Mercuries? And there was another guy from down that way that come up here with great big old Mercury or Lincoln. Lincoln, I think maybe it was. What was his name? I can't think of what his name was.
Randy Anderson has a picture, a team picture. He's going to show you this, and we've shown this to everybody, trying to identify a few folks, and there are a few that nobody can identify. So Ken, even if you can't, make up a name and you'll be a hero.
Take a look at that one, Ken. The guys that we haven't figured out yet, well, here, you can look at the list yourself. So in the back row, it's the guy between Freddie. There's Freddie there. It's the guy in the helmet that we're having trouble with. That's Freddie, and that's Ray Jordan. We're trying to figure out the guy in between with the helmet on. Any idea? That's a tough picture right now.
Yeah, it's a real tough picture.
Okay, never mind. Let me try a different picture here. I had better luck on that because it's a clearer picture. The guy we're having trouble with is this guy between Litz and Squirt. Paul Wilson and Squirt. This guy with glasses. Any idea? See, you made the picture. Ain't that you right there? Or no?
It kind of looks like me.
Well, everybody else.
Good looking.
Yeah, everybody else said it was.
Good looking.
Everybody else said everybody else said it was you.
It could be.
You don't think so?
Where's Black? Oh, this is
Blackie's down here.
Yeah, I guess that could be me.
And the other guy, way over on the end, is that your friend Komisarski? The white T-shirt?
No.
No? Okay. Do you know any of these three guys?
think it looks familiar, but I don't.
Okay.
I don't
So it's
remember
not
who
your
it
friend
was.
Mike. Huh? Okay.
No.
All right. Mike looks shorter, doesn't he?
Yeah, he's a pretty short guy.
Okay. Well, that's a good clue then.
Paul Hellman and Sammy and Whitehead. Whitehead was an old buddy of mine. We had a few.
Do you have these pictures, Randy, in your archive?
Hardy. There's old Jug.
Yeah, there's Jug right there.
There's the old Jug, Snur, Butler.
How about, you want to look at these pictures too, Ken? See if
No, we got the book.
see if any of those names mean anything to you. Any of those pictures mean anything to you?
I ran into Dill. Actually, Dill was living in Florida too, over in around above Tampa there. And Mobilia and him were always really good friends. And they had a car they wanted brought up here. So he had a car dolly. So I went over and got a car dolly from him. Trouble is, I had to buy new tires for the thing. So I guess I probably could have put the car on a trailer and brought it up or something. Floyd Thomas, he was a good guy. There's Maker, but that don't look like him.
No, you're right. Now that you've said that.
Yeah.
Wasn't Johnny from out this way?
Oh, he was.
Johnny Ditch?
No, he was from Northeast or Erie, I think.
Oh, Erie.
Yeah.
Oh.
Yeah, he turned me right around sideways. I'll never forget that. We was coming off the second turn right, running tight, and he caught me back into my car and just turned me right around sideways in front of all them cars coming right at me, and that was very uncomfortable because I'm looking out the window and here they come, you know. If it was the other side, I wouldn't have bothered. Chuck Piazza, Larry, Paul Wilson. I wonder if he's still alive.
He is not.
No. He's probably well embalmed.
He is?
Too bad. He was a nice guy too. I talked to John or Paul a number of times. He was wandering around the country and going to mission and stuff like that, you know. And, said, Paul, you ought to really let it sink into you. This stuff you're doing is not worthwhile, you know. You're just wasting everything. His brother was a drunk too, and but I guess it never. He said he beat up what's his name, the heads of Jamestown mission there. Can't think of his name. He got an owlie at him, punched him out.
Really?
Steinhauer. It was a lot of years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's too bad when a guy just wastes his life like that. And he was a pretty good race car driver too, man. Got around there good.
Do you have any recollections of Joe Sonner?
Oh yeah. Riding a motorcycle at North Main Street Extension, standing on the seat. That was the kind of guy he was. He was a pretty good race car. He drove for Twin Auto there, and yeah, he got around there pretty good. But that was what he was all about, you know, just kind of daredevil stuff. So was Dill, really. Yeah, Dill was crazy.
What about Freddie Knapp?
Nice guy, real nice guy. I liked Freddie. I went to Daytona with Busink one year as part of the pit crew, and he was going to drive the car in the ARCA race down there. Well, we worked on the car, and it was that car whistled all the way around the track. I mean, it just had a whistle to it. There was some air thing there that was where the air was going over. It just made it whistle, you know. But anyways, he never got the car really up to what it should have been doing. And so Busink put this kid from Michigan in the car. His name was Shanklin, and went out there, and he picked up about 10 miles an hour right away with it. But he's going down out there practicing, and I can't remember, dropped a valve or something, and there was smoke coming out of the back of the car, and I turned around to Busink and I says, I knew something was wrong with that car, and that really turned Busink off. That's all we need is a psychic on our race team here, And from that time on, old Julian, I don't know, he just kind of turned cool to me. I mean, but anyways, we fixed it, and that kid actually, but Freddie was, Freddie was a nice guy, gentleman, easy to get along with most of the time.
Yeah. What about, there's Bob Duell. Bob Duell.
Yeah, I knew of him, I knew who he was, but I never done. Good race car. Huh?
Jim Patrick?
Yeah, I remember him. You're getting back more into the modifieds now than out of the late models.
Well, we're looking at these guys that won races during that 1956 to 65 period of time. Some names we know some about, some we've interviewed, some we don't know that much about, like Jim Feeblecorn, or Gil Lathrop, or Leon Lindstrom. Names which...
Feeblecorn, he was from Randolph.
Was he?
He had a speed shop down there and ran mostly Fords.
He's not alive, Janie? No. But we've had fun just meet the Kenny C's of this world.
Yeah.
This is so much fun for us to do that. You brighten up our day, and it's part of the story.
Well, you kind of brightened up my day too. I never had anybody come around and say, "Hey." Well, once in a while you run into somebody. I did run into a guy down here at a body shop in Westfield. What's Ottoways, and the guy in there, he's an old-time Coon Road man, And I went in there one day, and he asked me who I was. I said, "Oh, you're that guy." Yeah. No, we got to talking about old Coon Road Speedway there. So it's fun once in a while to run into somebody that really had the experience back then.
Did you ever see any movies of your racing?
No.
You ever know if anybody's even ever took movies?
No, I don't know.
We're still looking. That's the holy grail here.
Yeah, that would... See, I was so cheap, I never even bought any of them pictures of them. I don't know if any of those are from...
These are from Rupp Photo. Gordon Mann is who you're Gordon Mann.
Yeah, that's... But he had a lot of them there. I never bought very many of them. Couldn't afford them, really. Had to spend the money on a race car,
Well, the interesting is we'll be meeting shortly with Mrs. Gordon Mann.
Oh, yeah?
And we understand she's got the pictures.
Oh, I'll bet.
So we're anxious to see what she's got, and hopefully that's going to be a good part of the documentary.
Oh, I'll bet he's got something good.
Another name, Ken, Jim Polaro.
Yeah.
What do you remember about Jim?
Yeah, he was another one of them guys. Yeah, I got along with almost all them guys. He was always pretty helpful too. I mean, if you needed something, he was pretty innovative when it come to building cars and stuff like that. That's the kind of guys you want to get around. The guys that were, technologically advanced over some of the other guys, and they knew what made this do that and everything, And that was the biggest thing in the beginning, running late models, is how do you set them up, And the guys that's where I say Squirt really excelled, because he had that old Punkin just set up so it could run right around the inside on a rail there, and fast too. So, but it's the guys that used or noodled is the one you want to hang around, I tell you.
Well, Ken C., thank you so much. This has been great. We really enjoyed this.
Well, I enjoyed it. That's great.
Well, stay tuned. September 26th. Put that
Okay.
on your calendar.
Brings back a lot of memories.
Who's that, Ken?
That's Joe
What
Mobilia.
I was hoping you'd
Yeah.
tell me. I don't have a picture of Joe Mobilia.
That's what we call Jumpy Joe.
Because why?
Very spontaneous. He's you think Finellis are quick. I think he had them at beat as far
Well-
as a flash temper goes.
What was wrong with Joe's arm?
I think he was in an accident or something, and I never really inquired too much. I know his brother real well, and I work for nights down here during the grape season, harvesting, stuff like that, so I know Mike and that, but that's their uncle.
Right. The Knights bought a lot of their land from the Mobilias.
Yeah.
You know, Joe, but just an aside, did Joe have a daughter named Ruth? Does that ring a bell?
He had a daughter. I'm not sure what her name was.
Okay, just curious, because I went to school with a Ruth Mobilia,
Yeah.
who was from this area, so probably some relation.
Well, his nephew, is it, that's got the winery up here, Arrowhead Winery.
That's Joe's
Mobilia.
nephew?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Hence the sponsorship on Mike Knight's car.
Uh-huh.
Arrowhead Winery.
Yeah.
Now I'm starting to all
Yeah.
make sense.
Oh, yeah.
So do
Yeah, I got
the
a
Knight
hat.
boys know that you've had a successful racing career?
Oh, yeah. I had a friend of mine took that picture. Not that one. He was a photographer, and he took, what picture was that? That one right there. And he put on a Daytona International Speedway. Winner Ken C. So I won the Daytona 500, and that's down there on their wall.
Oh, is it? Oh, that's terrific. That's just
Yeah, Mike and Andy are good guys.
Yep. I'll show you a picture. Can I take this off?
Yeah.